Floki Inu has absolutely crushed it in the last year. It's up more than 700% and it's beaten all the other major players, Bitcoin and Ethereum of course, but also Dogecoin. Now let's have a look whether or not this rally can last longer. Let's have a look at relative valuations and let's also consider on-chain metrics. So let's look behind the price data and let's actually have a look at who's buying here, who's selling here. Now here's Dogecoin's performance in the last year. It's up 738%, while Dogecoin made less than 400, Bitcoin made 160%, and Ethereum is lagging behind with 54%. Now there are two versions of Floki Inu. One of them is on the Ethereum chain, the other one is on the Binance Smart Chain. Let's have a look at the on-chain data of both tokens. So on Ethereum, we've got roughly 84,000 holders. On the Binance Smart Chain, we've got way more. We've got 420,000 holders. And so in this video, I want to show a few charts you've probably not yet seen. Now, this is what everybody has seen. This is the US dollar chart of Floki Inu. Now, there are two ways to plot such a chart. The first one is simply like this on a linear scale, but we can also toggle this to a logarithmic scale. Now, what happens with logarithmic scales? On logarithmic scales, it's not the US dollar price that's constant across distances, it's the percentage changes. Now this here is a 230% increase, but this here is also a 230% increase. And the same is true over here. Right? It's a 230% increase. And I'd argue that this is the more important of the charts, right? Because we want to make percent gains. We are not really interested in the US dollar price. Now here's a slightly different chart. It's again logarithmic, but this time we don't just look at the US dollar price. We look at Floki Inu relative to Ethereum. Because again, part of the liquidity of Floki Inu is in the Ethereum ecosystem. It's in liquidity pools against Ethereum. Now, interestingly enough, we did get our risk compensated, right? Floki Inu is more risky than Ethereum, and over the years, despite we have seen a lot of volatility, we still outperformed slightly. Now, when attention goes down and we are in a bear market, the crashes can, of course, be brutal. This is a drawdown of 95% almost. But that also means that when you time it right, a lot of gains are to be made. An increase of 2,300% here. Here is Floki Inu relative to BNB. Not really an outperformance, but one might argue that there's still a bit of upside potential left. So that's 28% roughly. The delta becomes more clear when comparing Floki Inu to Bitcoin. It seems like those two tops do align somewhat well. The upside potential here is 73% versus Bitcoin. And I am actually very bullish on Bitcoin. The Bitcoin dominance continues to rise quite consistently. So more and more capital flows into Bitcoin. Bitcoin becomes a more important fraction of all of crypto. If then Floki Inu was even able to outperform Bitcoin, at least temporarily, that's a very green flag. Now the on-chain metrics are somewhat mixed and we have to always look at two versions of the token. As said, one of them is on the Binance Smart Chain, one of them is on Ethereum. What we see over here are Ethereum-based statistics. And on the left side, we see the number of wallets that have at least 4 million Floki Inu tokens. Now at the current price, that's roughly $1,000 worth of the token. That's what I consider retail. In the middle, we've got medium-sized wallets. So that's now a 10x in minimum holding. So $10,000 worth of the token. On the right, it's another 10x. So it's $100,000 worth of the token. Now it's interesting how this is all going down while the price is going up. And I believe that is because of centralized exchange listings. If you run a centralized exchange, you need to have some Floki Inu tokens for market making. And so a lot of the individual holders that held Floki Inu in their wallets, they then transfer this over to the centralized exchanges to trade this for lower fees, especially on Ethereum. Now here are the same kind of charts, but for the Binance Smart Chain, very similar picture. Now let's have a look at the recent past, at the last month. Let's have a look at the number of new users per day versus returning users, normalized to 100%. So again, just to recap, Floki Inu went up by 67% in the last month. And the number of new users on chain on Ethereum is rising quite nicely. So the Dogecoin rally led to some people taking some of those gains and moving them into Floki. We're seeing a nice spike on the 16th of November. We see a secondary spike on the 20th. Now today isn't yet over, so we can ignore the last data point. We can also see how the number of new users relative to returning users tends to increase slightly over time. Here are the same kind of charts for the Binance Smart Chain. Again, a peak on the 16th of November. And so here's the 16th of November. We had quite a lot of trading volume. And since then, we are going sideways. So it appears as if there are some whales taking profit. Just have a look at the number of buyers versus sellers today. There's way more buyers, 85% versus 15%, but the buying volume relative to the selling volume is quite equal. In other words, some very large players take profit, and they are the reason why the rally is currently not continuing. Now let's have a look at a few more unconventional charts. What we've got over here is Floki Inu relative to Dogecoin. And interestingly enough, this seems to be in a somewhat stable trading range. Sometimes Floki Inu is more expensive, sometimes Dogecoin is more expensive, but over the years, it seems like slowly Dogecoin is appreciating. So over the course of 3 years, it's 116% roughly. Or have a look at this. This is Floki Inu relative to Shiba Inu. Also slightly outperformed, of course, a lot of volatility. There's two ways to look at this. Either we are simply just very expensive right now, or alternatively, we are in a long-term outperforming trend and we are not that expensive. Now, here's why I think Floki Inu outperformed with all of that volatility, Dogecoin and Shiba Inu. The reason is market caps. Floki Inu is still a fraction of the size of Shiba Inu or Dogecoin. And because it's smaller, there is more upside, right? It takes less dollars in order to increase its market cap. There's actually a common misconception among meme coin traders right now. Most people think that the altcoins in general currently outperform the rest of the market, but that's not true. What we see over here is the others dominance. So how much of all of crypto is currently in the cryptocurrencies that are not in the top 10? Since beginning of the year, this went down by more than 30%. In the last 2 years, it went down by more than 50%. And again, the Bitcoin dominance continues to rise. It's all those ETF inflows. If we annualize the ETF inflows in the last 14 days, we get to a supply absorption of 9%. The Bitcoin ETF holdings would roughly triple. It would almost triple in the next years if you continue to see those kinds of inflows. And so really, I believe most gains are to be made in the smaller tokens, right? The smaller the token, the more potential long-term gains there are. If you look at the top performers in the last week, then it's all market caps in the tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions, but it's definitely not in the billions like Floki Inu. Now the question is, how can we get those tokens early, right? Before they perform that well. So how can we buy something like the peanut token when it's not above $1, but when it's just at a few cents? And my answer to this is wallet tracking. I like to look at wallets that are owned by influencers, that are owned by insiders, that are owned by people that tend to make the right calls, that are top traders. For example, look at this wallet alert over here. The peanut token, which is now at above $1, was bought for 3 cents by Crypto Banter. And so that was over here. Since then, the price went up by almost 4,000%. This here is Crypto Banter. They've got more than 1 million subscribers on YouTube. When they talk about the token, of course, this will generate attention, and attention then translates into purchases. And so here are the wallets that we track by Crypto Banter. It's 33 in total. But we don't just track Crypto Banter, we also track, for example, Alex Becker. He's got 1.5 million subscribers. We've got 12 of his wallets. In total, we track more than 400 wallets. And so really, I believe this is how it's done. It's not just buying random tokens in a list and then deciding, okay, I like this icon. I think this is a very cute meme. I think it's better to buy whatever successful traders are buying, because then we can mimic that performance. I like this approach so much that I made a dedicated course, a dedicated video course just on wallet tracking. So how can we find the wallets of other influencers? How can we then track those wallets? And finally, how can we interpret the signals that we get from the tracking? It's all part of the premium membership of this channel, but premium is not just about wallet tracking. It's also about on-chain analytics, right? The charts that we looked at today in this video. It's also about backtesting. It's also about risk management and portfolio diversification. There's more than 100 tutorial videos in total. Once we have a wallet signal, we of course also have to discuss when should we buy, when should we sell. We have to update our on-chain analytics, etc. That's why we've got dedicated chats on the individual altcoins as well. So feel free to check it out. It's currently $125 per month. There's also a 1-week money back guarantee. So in case you don't like premium, in case you don't make money, just message me within the first week and I'll refund you 100%. There's really zero risk for you. And so I believe that short-term Floki Inu is quite heated. There's quite a bit of attention on the token. Yes, relative to Bitcoin, the valuation still looks fine, but relative to other meme coins, not necessarily. Can Floki Inu outperform outperform Dogecoin over the next 4 to 5 years? I think that's very likely. Will it go up in the next week? I'm not so sure. I think the real opportunity is in those smaller tokens, in the tokens that have just 10 million, maybe 100 million market cap, and that at the same time get bought by the influential people. If you got some value out of this video, feel free to subscribe. I publish videos regularly. A like would be very much appreciated as well. It helps the channel grow. See you in the next one, or see you in premium. Cheers.